Rogers reports.
It had been 3 weeks since this car was reported stolen. Bulletin going out citywide about its potentially dangerous cargo. Tonight, it was with some apprehension that nurse Juanita Ramey opened the trunk, hoping against hope that things would be just as she had left them.
Yeah, everything's intact. There are quite a few needles in here. All have been used. There's some contaminated needles, quite a few contaminated needles. I have patients who are HIV positive. One has died, and his needle is in here.
Ramey makes home calls on AIDS patients, drawing blood for medical tests. She says the container does not appear to have been tampered with.
It doesn't look as if anyone has been exposed to this. It was closed when I received it. It was the way I had left it.
The car was discovered here in the parking lot this afternoon by someone who noticed that the back window had been broken out. But security people at the nearby Dominick's say it wasn't here this morning.
7 o'clock a.m. And no, this car wasn't here.
Once we ran the plate, we found out that that was the car that, in fact, was stolen a couple weeks ago with the contaminated material in it.
Police say they, of course, may never know who took the car. But tonight, the needles are back where they belong. Ramey says that's a great weight off her mind.
Oh, yes, very much so, very much so. I would not want anyone to be exposed to this.
Phil Rogers, Channel 5 News.
And police have
down onto a loop street.
From a public housing window is suing the CHA. The 7-year-old boy fell from the Abla homes a year ago. Dora Bonner charges the CHA was negligent for leaving a vacant apartment unlocked. And tonight, a woman who admitted losing control of her truck and hitting a little girl riding her bicycle has been charged with failing to have insurance. It's a story coming to us from our Northwest Indiana Bureau. The accident happened this afternoon at this convenience store on Calumet Avenue in Hammond. The driver of the truck was pulling into a parking space in front of the store, but the truck never stopped. It hit the girl, pinning her between the truck and the front of the store.
I heard broken glass, and I saw a baby that was pent up under the passenger wheel, and I hollered out, and help came out from everywhere. So one of the guys said, let's lift up the truck. We proceeded to lift up the truck, and we kept hollering to the other people to get the baby from under the wheel before we can't hold the truck any longer.
The little girl was rushed to the hospital and tonight is listed in stable condition. Later, the driver told Channel 2's Dorothy Tucker that a can of pop had rolled underneath her brake pedal.
What's wrong with your brake pedal? No, something rolled under there and I went to hit the brake and it didn't go down.
The little girl is 7-year-old Heather Johnson. She was airlifted from Indiana to Weiler Children's Hospital in Chicago earlier tonight for observation for chest injuries. Her brother, 5-year-old Matthew, was hit by flying glass. He has been released from the hospital. A woman who admitted losing control of her truck and hitting a little girl riding her bicycle has been charged with failing to have insurance. It's a story coming to us from our Northwest Indiana Bureau. The accident happened this afternoon at this convenience store on Calumet Avenue in Hammond. The driver of the truck was pulling into a parking space in front of the store, but the truck never stopped. It hit the girl, pinning her between the truck and the front of the store.
I heard broken glass, and I saw a baby that was pent up under the passenger wheel, and I hollered out, and help came out from everywhere. So one of the guys said, let's lift up the truck. We proceeded to lift up the truck, and we kept hollering to the other people to get the baby from under the wheel before we can't hold the truck any longer.
The little girl was rushed to the hospital and tonight is listed in stable condition. Later, the driver told Channel 2's Dorothy Tucker that a can of pop had rolled underneath her brake pedal.
What's wrong with your brake pedal? No, something rolled under there and I went to hit the brake and it didn't go down.
The little girl is 7-year-old Heather Johnson. She was airlifted from Indiana to Weiler Children's Hospital in Chicago earlier tonight for observation for chest injuries. Her brother, 5-year-old Matthew, was hit by flying glass. He has been released from the hospital.
See that the bicycle is still up under the truck. There was another little boy who was right next to the girl. Now, I did get a chance to talk to the driver, and the driver tells me that she was pulling into this spot, and she says that she saw the little girl and she saw another little boy playing by the telephone. And she said she tried to stop, but she couldn't stop, which is why she ended up crashing right through the window and knocking the little girl down right about here. Now, she also told me that at that moment she realized that there was a pop bottle underneath her brake. when she finally did come to some kind of stop, people were all around. They were screaming around here, coming out of the store through the window, and then eventually a man showed up, and that man helped to make sure that the little girl who was trapped up underneath the truck got out.
I heard broken glass, and I saw a baby that was pent up under the passenger wheel, and I hollered out, and help came out from everywhere. So one of the guys said, let's lift up the truck. We proceeded to lift up the truck, and we kept hollering to the other people to get the baby from under the wheel before we can't hold the truck any longer. So as we got ready, we had made up our mind we was going to turn the truck over if nobody don't get the baby, because we're not going to let the wheel fall on the baby. So they finally got the baby, and the truck was lowered, and the baby was taken with the ambulance.
Now, I have learned that the driver of the truck was a 42-year-old woman by the name of Sherry Reeves, and that the little girl, and now I know when you look at this picture, you could say, how in the world could anyone have survived this? How could a little girl have been trapped under there and been okay? But we have found out that her name is Heather. She's 7 years old. She is in fair condition, and her brother, we believe, who was playing right next to her, may have only got not exactly hit by the truck.
She was on her bike outside a store when a pickup truck tried pulling into a parking spot and wouldn't stop. Heather's mom was in the store. Her brother was hit by the truck but not hurt. Heather was pinned beneath the truck's wheels. Today she was strong enough to explain to our Dorothy Tucker.
It hurted me. I couldn't talk. I was suffocating because the wheel was on me.
One of the guys said, let's lift up the truck. We proceeded to lift up the truck, and we kept hollering to the other people to get the baby from under the wheel before we can't hold the truck any longer.
Thanks for saving my life.
Heather's pain will heal. She is strong and brave and very lucky.
Hammond resident David Bell is a big man in more ways than one. Big enough, in fact, to be able to lift a truck. And that's just what he did when a 9-year-old girl was stuck underneath a full-sized pickup truck. But bigger perhaps than his physical strength is David Bell's quickness in that life-threatening situation. Today, David Bell is receiving recognition that is well-deserved after saving a life. Here's Jim Raganisi with that story.
It was in front of the Grand Food Mart at 169th Street and Calumet Avenue where Heather and Matthew Johnson were eating their popsicles they had just bought. That's when the brakes on the red pickup truck failed. The truck smashed through the window, pinning 9-year-old Heather underneath it. The convenience store manager made the 911 phone call.
A truck ran through the window and there's a little kid under the truck. There's a little kid under the truck? Right. Is the truck on top of the child? I don't know.
That's where Hammond resident David Bell came in, leading the effort to pick the truck up, saving Heather's life. The heroics caught the attention of producers from the television show Rescue 911. And now David Bell's story is being filmed to air on national television. For David, it's a dream come true.
I always wanted to do something like this, you know, like act and have all this attention, and I love it.
But for the mother of Heather and Matthew Johnson, who had dummies and actors portraying them, one of whom even had chest hair, unusual for a 9-year-old girl, reliving the incident is somewhat painful.
Very much so.
Like what?
I know they're okay, so that's what helps. But it's not a good thing to see again.
Rolling and... Producing this brief scene takes hundreds of takes. Crews began taping this morning and will not wrap up until tomorrow night. Hundreds of area residents braved the light rain today to encounter a brief brush with Hollywood, or at least how they do things there. Spectators came to see the truck crash through the window and David lift the truck up. But through it all, David Bell does not consider himself a hero.
I did something that I had to do, and if anybody's a hero, I say God, he get all the praises. To me, he's the hero because he gave the strength and the power to me and another young man named Adrian Miller.
Well, I hate to disappoint you, but they didn't have the scene of where the truck crashed through the window shot by our deadline today. I'll shoot that later. And if you want to see that, as well as David Bell's heroics here at Grand Foods, you can check that out. It airs in about 3 to 6 months, according to producers, on the CBS network. In Hammond, Jim Raganisi, 56 News.
And despite the Grand Food Mart being shut down for 2 days during filming and having its window smashed out again, the owner of the store says he definitely knows his business will be affected today and tomorrow, but he says it's worth it to recognize the accomplishments of David Bell. And Jim's story leads to our 56 feedback question for tonight. We want to know, if you witnessed a life-threatening accident, would you be able to act quickly to save someone's life, as David Bell did? Let us know what you think by calling 756-5656. We'll have those results at the end of tonight's newscast.
James is one.
Before we do, let's get back to our 56 feedback question for tonight. This refers to a case that is on Rescue 911 being filmed this week in Hammond, where a man saved a 9-year-old girl from death by raising up a pickup truck. So we want to know, if you witnessed a life-threatening accident, would you be able to act quickly to save someone's life? You have just a few more minutes to call in to 756-5656, and we'll have those results at the end of tonight's newscast.
And we'll get to the weather.
Let's get to our feedback results. The question tonight asked, if you witnessed a life-threatening accident, would you be able to act quickly to save someone's life? Of those who phoned in, 67% said yes, and 33% said no. I definitely would want to be around the 67% if that were to be the case.
Oh, sure. That happened to you.
Yes.
Hello and welcome to the 4th edition of Newsbreak 94. I'm Marie Sasso.
And I'm Gary Bosco. In this edition of Newsbreak, we'll talk with a Dominic security officer who saved the life of a little girl and is our own real hero. Then we'll take a look at food safety laws that are soon to be on the books for food handlers. And do you treat your pet like a member of the family? See how specialized merchandising is making shopping for your pet even easier. Stay tuned for these stories and more coming up next in Newsbreak 94.
A Dominic security officer saved the life of a 7-year-old girl who was struck by a truck at a Hammond, Indiana convenience store. Dave Bell from store number 130, with the help of 2 others, lifted the Ford F-150 off the chest of the girl, allowing her to be brought to safety. Luckily for Heather Johnson, Dave Bell's occupation is to think on his feet. On August 8th, Dave was driving behind the truck that eventually struck into the Grand Food Mart on 169th Avenue. Hearing the crash and people screaming, Dave jumped out of his car and saw the girl pinned under the wheel.
So I sent this guy to go get a jack. He ran to go get a jack. Then this other guy came along whose name is Miller. He said, "Hey, we don't have time for a jack. Let's pick it up." So I got on the side front of the truck, and he was right beside me down by the door, and I just lift my part up.
Bell explained that being a security officer, a job he does every day, gave him the ability to handle the situation and succeed.
Being a security officer, you don't think about doing it, you do it. There's no time for thinking. It's time for reacting. And yes, my job plays a very big part of me saving Heather's life.
The news media was quick to act in getting the story out, and soon Dave Bell was being called a local hero.
People say to me, "How you feel being a hero?" You're a hero, but my mom, you know, taught me, trained me, brought me up, and told me this. And I'm going to tell you all, I'm not the hero. God is the hero. God, the one who gave the strength.
The television series Rescue 911 is making a recreation of the accident. Bell played his own part, and they shot the episode at the same store and even broke the window. Bell was so good in Rescue 911's reenactment that they called him One Take Dave on the scene.
New federal guidelines on food safety.
On August 8th,